Welcome back to Insight. We are talking small business development on today's show, meeting with leaders with the Quad Cities Chamber of Commerce and some business owners who are benefiting from chamber programs. Joining us now is Ladrina Wilson, the chamber CEO, and Brandy Poston, the manager of talent acquisition. Thank you both for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Of course, of course. So let's start with how the chamber is helping small businesses today. What does that look like?
Well, of course, small businesses are a priority for us. We have strong connections to SCORE. We do a lot of referral work with our SCORE programs, and we actually have positions that are funded through the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, both at Western Illinois University, and we have staff that are working in collaboration with, in Eastern Iowa Community Colleges. We have staff that are working in connection to put people with resources that they need, whether that's capital, finding building locations, creating business plans. And so that's the work that we really focus on in trying to just build an inclusive economy.
Yeah, talk to me about why it's so important to lift up some of these smaller companies, these smaller businesses looking to kind of get their start around here.
So for me, even more specifically, like minority-owned businesses, the reason why is because if we want to truly create an economy where all can thrive, like we have to make sure we close those gaps. And so I do that by way of our business councils. So these councils convene quarterly where we discuss the challenges that are specific to minority business owners. And then I take that information and respond via resources or making connections again to our partners like SCORE and the Small Business Development Center.
And I think the other thing that's really important is a lot of times when people think about economic development and growth, you're thinking large businesses, right? If you have a large company that comes into a community and brings several hundred jobs, people need to have things to do here. They need shops, they need restaurants, they need salons and nail technicians, and they need all the services that you would need to keep a community active and thriving and to keep people staying here so they have the job and they have the entertainment and a thriving community around them.
And speaking of that thriving community, what does diversifying our local economy do in terms of keeping the community great, making it even greater?
So what I would say is any community that is truly about growth, there's not going to be just certain groups of people that have access to opportunities. It really is a commitment to identifying where there are some of the biggest gaps and then creating programs, resources, and supports to address those gaps. Sometimes that comes in the form of job creation. So we do work around talent development and trying to get young folks, particularly those folks that have been, that are minoritized populations, access to work-based learning opportunities. So we could be working with our schools and working with students as young as 16 years old, all the way through supporting workforce right now needs and getting people in jobs, all the way to entrepreneurship. So really is a pipeline of opportunity, and so that's what makes a region like ours have the opportunity to be competitive, like a place that people want to be.
And Brandy, you mentioned these councils. What kind of businesses do we see take part in those, and how do they help?
So there is a Black Business Council, an Immigrant and Refugee Business Council, and a Women's Business Council. And so what I do is I try to make space for each group's individual agency and really kind of glean the themes, across those groups, and just respond accordingly. So that would be for the immigrants and refugees. I typically hold those meetings at World Relief. Right, this is a space that's comfortable for that population of folks. For the Women's Business Council, it is really just bringing women together and kind of rallying around things that feel comfortable for women. In the Black Business Council, there's so many different, agencies that kind of work to support Black business, and we kind of do some of the same things that they do.
What kind of reaction do you get from people who take part in these councils?
Typically, when a person receives a resource, right, they are just super grateful, happy that someone has taken an opportunity to sit down and really try to glean what they need instead of, just kind of pushing programming. I really get a sense of gratefulness.
And I think that's what's interesting, especially when you put the minority lens on it, is, if you look at our community and where there are gaps, there aren't as many minority-owned businesses. That's changing, right? But the conversations that you might have at a dinner table because your parent grew up as an entrepreneur is different than the conversations you might have if your parent grew up as a CNA or in the service industry. So what we're doing is we're taking people who really want to be entrepreneurs, who already have their businesses and they want to grow, but maybe they haven't had access over the course of their entire lifetime to conversations that some people had at the time from as young as kindergarten at the dinner table, right? So that's the space that we try to fill, because while the resources are out there, they're not always easy to interpret. It's not always just as simple as, yeah, just go read that or go do this. Sometimes you need a little bit of support in the form of community and hand-holding even.
You mentioned small business development centers. What kind of businesses take part in that, and how does that help?
So really any business can use the support of the Small Business Development Center, but there's funding available for different minority businesses, but businesses that are just getting started, including myself, at a certain point I used the resources that were available at the Small Business Development Center. Also businesses that are really looking to accelerate their growth. So maybe they're at a point, you don't have to be small in staff. You might be small in your skill sets around a particular area like marketing, or your skill sets around accounting. What the Small Business Development Center does is it connects you to those resources, that person or those people who have the expertise that you don't. A lot of times small businesses, people wear many hats, and that's fine, but there's some hats that just don't fit, right? So the Small Business Development Center will help you identify, like, you're trying to do too much, here's this other resource that you should be taking advantage of.
And you mentioned SCORE as well. It's really a really good resource, especially for those businesses who are just starting up. Tell me about the type of services that SCORE provides.
I don't know, you want to speak more specifically about that?
Really, SCORE does a lot of the same things that the Small Business Development Center does, and they work together, so they kind of understand where the sweet spots are for each entity, and they work together to get the person in need the best opportunity. And so SCORE is comprised of mostly retirees in this area that just want to give back, and they mentor different business owners. And they can really take you from your business idea all the way through, at any point in the business plan, honestly. They have someone that can speak to all levels.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
I usually refer people more who are on the earlier part of inception and concept building to SCORE. Not that SBDC can't help, but that's kind of how I frame it.
Yeah.
And then if you have a little bit more of an involved question, I usually recommend that people use the resources at SBDC.
So lots of resources out there for people who might not know about them.
Yeah.
Absolutely, very important. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, though, we will meet a new business owner and hear what she's doing to make a difference in the Quad Cities. That's coming up next on Insight.